She was one of the most talented ballerinas in her city, until a single night changed everything. Doctors said she would never walk again. But what no one expected was what she chose to do next. Because when the world closed its doors, she found a new way to dance, and what happened on that stage left the entire audience in tears. The theater breathed before her, like a sleeping animal, lit dressing rooms, corridors whispering footsteps and secrets. Isabela tied up her hair and checked the bow on her slippers by heart. The white costume seemed like a promise made of light. Today is the day, she said to the reflection, trying to believe it. On the empty stage, she tested her balance on invisible demi-point. He counted with his fingers, 2, 3, 4, silence. The orchestra would arrive in half an hour, the audience in 1. She always loved this pause where anything is possible, the heartbeat in time, keeping the rhythm. Rafaela entered without knocking, with a smile that calmed storms. Take a deep breath. The music does the rest. They laughed at the ancient amulet, a pin in the waistband of the costume, a quick hug, the smell of talcum powder and warm coffee. Their friendship was the choreography that never failed. The rain began as a distant prelude. On the cell phone, messages flashed like fireflies. Leaving now, Isabela wrote, her coat already on her shoulders. The driver didn't come. The city was stuck in wet sirens. Rafaela offered a ride, but Isabela insisted, I can do it. The parking lot reflected broken stars in the water. His hands trembled as he turned the key, chilling his bones. The radio played an adagio, slow as fear. She smiled, pretending everything was under control. The night, however, had its own plans. The avenue looked like a dark river running backwards. Blurred lights, short horns, bated breaths. The windshield wiper danced awkwardly on the glass. Calm down, it's just rain, she repeated, like a mantra. The dashboard clock ticked away in slow motion. A message came in, vibrating Rafaela's name. Getting there okay? Do you want me to pick you up? Isabela placed her cell phone on the console, without responding. The music rose, the notes embraced the cabin. The tires whispered something she didn't hear. The headlight ahead changed color like an imperfect trick. A truck braked late, cutting the lane in two. The world has become an uncontrolled spin. Without a conductor, glass, metal, rain and a silent flash, the body learned the weight of gravity in one fell swoop. All that was left was the fading sound, a short, hitched breath, asking for help, the smell of fuel mixed with stage perfume, a taste of iron tinging the mouth, bitter and hot, and the darkness closing the curtain before the applause. Of the things she wouldn't remember later, one remained, the sensation of being suspended. As if in an infinite grand jeté, no falling. No landing, just standing in the air, time, cruel and patient, holding her by the shoulders, until finally, nothing moved inside her. Awakening was a cold light piercing heavy eyelids, machines breathed beside them, lines and numbers crying. The room smelled of antiseptic and endless night. Someone called your name from far away. The voice came back broken, Isabela, listen to me. The hospital's ceiling seemed too high for a body. She tried to wiggle her toes like she always did. He sent the order, waited for a response, received nothing. The emptiness descended from the knees to the heart. Rafa. He whispered, asking for the world back. The doctor had eyes trained for bad news. He held the clipboard like someone holding rain in a cup. He spoke of fractures, spine, spinal cord, rectangular terms. Every word was a door closing. You will never walk again, he said, and the clock stopped. Rafaela was there. But she seemed distant from herself. Her hand, warm, sought Isabela's on the blanket. I'm here, breathe with me. They synchronized the pain to the count they knew. 1, 2, 3, 4, silence, and tears. The mother arrived carrying prayers and clean clothes. Dona Vera spoke softly, as if she feared awakening fate. He ran his fingers through his daughter's hair, combing out memories. It's going to be okay, he lied lovingly. Sometimes lying is the only way to pray. Isabela asked for a mirror and didn't recognize herself. Risks, bandages, a face that still sought the stage. He tried to find the ballerina behind the bruises. He just thought she was a girl tired of being strong. The costume was now a folded sheet of pain. The night at the hospital had velvet steps. She counted the lights in the hallway to keep from crying. He thought about Half Point, about the jump that would never come back. He thought of the first pair of worn-out sneakers. He thought about the body, that old dance partner. A physical therapist walked in with an autumn smile. I'm Lucas, he said, as if announcing music. He explained. Exercises that seemed like distant seas. He spoke of adaptation, patience, starting over without maps. Isabela listened, not believing, but kept his voice. At dawn, the hospital fell silent. She closed her eyes and searched for a familiar note. He found a piano hidden in his chest. Shyly, he let the melody rest against his shallow breath. If I don't walk, I can still breathe in rhythm. In the end, before sleep, she made a silent pact. If the body didn't come back, she would go back another way. I didn't know which one, nor when, nor with whom, but he decided to survive his own fall, because the curtain, sooner or later, always rises. At home, the room looked like a darkened stage. The curtains hung heavy like damp memories. Isabela avoided the mirror like someone avoiding the sea. I was afraid to listen to what my body would say. I was afraid of saying nothing back. Old videos played like blue ghosts, suspended jumps, perfect spins, loud applause. She paused at the peak, as if holding her breath. I wanted to live in that frame forever, where nothing hurt, where everything was still light. The wheelchair gleamed in the dim light, new object, unwanted presence, metallic silence. He pushed slowly, testing the rhythm of the floor. The bearings whistled a sad song. It was music, but outside of it, Dona Vera knocked on the door with her fingers in prayer. He brought soups, promises and tender prohibitions. Don't try too hard, daughter, accept the limits. Soft words that weighed tons. Isabela smiled so as not to hurt her love. At night, the body cried out for movement. The arms asked for work, the eyes asked for a stage. She closed her eyelids and choreographed memories. Every remembered step hurt like glass. Each memory blew ash onto the tongue. She looked at her slippers stored in the trunk. Worn leather, ribbons like ancient rivers. He ran his fingers over it, recognizing the texture of the past. I wanted to be that girl in the empty classroom again, who danced happily just by learning to fall. The friends sent audio messages between smiles. Shy invitations, rehearsals, coffees, news. Isabela responded with emojis that hid her pain. She didn't want to be the sad story on the wheel. I wanted to be the silence before the music. One morning, he tried to stand up too much. His arms trembled like ropes about to snap. Cold sweat, shortness of breath, chest tightness. He felt angry at fate, and guilty about his anger. He cried softly so as not to wake up the house. Shame was a costume that didn't fit, guilt, a spotlight on your face, the fear, the endless audience watching without blinking. She wished to disappear into the wings of the world, and reappear only when he could fly. In the background, however, there was a point of light. A small beat, beating stubbornly inside. It didn't say come back, it didn't promise a miracle. He just kept repeating, breathe, wait, listen. Perhaps the dance was learning to be born again. Lucas arrived with morning on his shoulders. He brought a clipboard, rubber bands, and a light sense of humor. Shall we negotiate with the body? He asked, smiling. Isabela raised her eyebrow in calm disbelief. He doesn't honor contracts, she said, hurt. He demonstrated handstand exercises, strengthened shoulders, back, core support. Dance lives here too. He touched his sternum. Rhythm is breathing with purpose. She rolled her eyes, but listened. First, the chair as an extension of the torso. Push, break, turn, recognize the curves. Listening to the floor as if reading Braille from the floor. Knowing where the body ends and the wheel begins, and where both dance without asking permission. The songs came in slow tempos, for times to inhale, for times to release, hands drawing arcs, fists speaking truths, the chest marking invisible pulses, the look learning to drive without feet. On the third day, there was an almost smile. A simple sequence finally fit, short turn, lock, inversion with arms. Lucas clapped his hands as if for a miracle. Isabela pretended to be bored, but she shone inside. He told his own story. Without drama, former dancer, knee injury, end of stage. I traded jumping for listening, scene for care. It's not giving up, it's changing the choreography. The phrase landed on her like an unhurried bird. In the afternoon, they went to Rafaela's empty studio. Smooth floor, patched mirrors, smell of resin. Lucas asked for silence to listen to the space. Isabela turned her chair in a shy half-moon. The echo replied, you still belong here. He tried a lying figure eight with the hoop. Hands burned, shoulders protested. But the curve came out intact, almost beautiful. She laughed, surprised, as if remembering her own name. Lucas smiled. See? The body fulfills contracts. At the end of the session, they lay down on the studio floor, staring at the ceiling. counting flowing between breaths. Isabela felt her heart beat at the exact time. It wasn't happiness, yet, but it was a path. And the path, for the first time, seemed danceable. Before leaving, she touched the mirror with her palm. I'm not the same, and that's okay, she whispered. The glass returned a woman learning to start over. Lucas put away the rubber bands like someone closing a book. The music, discreet, remained lit inside her. That night, the house slept, but the radio did not. An old melody drifted timidly down the hall. It was the same piano from the show that never happened. Isabela held her breath, feeling her body shiver. The sound awakened something she thought she had buried. He closed his eyes and began to count mentally. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fingers moved. First, the hesitant gesture of hands in the air. Then, the chair turned slightly, almost without force. The music led her, and she let herself go. The tears came, not as pain, but as return. The body remembered, the heart obeyed. It was strange to dance without ground under your feet, but it was also liberating, as if the world were spinning around her. That morning, silence became the stage. The next day, he tried to repeat what he felt, but without the radio, the void seemed greater. She put on an old playlist and laughed to herself. Between each track, I heard the applause I already had, and the ones I still would have, even if I didn't know. Lucas noticed the change in her gaze. You heard music, didn't you? He asked, smiling. Isabela pretended to be distracted, but her face gave her away. Maybe. Just a little. Then the body began to hear again. This is the beginning. Rafaela appeared at the end of the week. He brought tapes, sheet music and that impatient glow. Do you want to try something new with me? Isabela hesitated. Holding the chair's rim. If it's dancing, no. Not yet. But Rafaela insisted, like someone planting hope. Do you think dancing is just about your legs? I've seen your gaze float, Isa. The sentence broke something inside her, and rebuilt it. Okay. One step at a time. That night he dreamed of lights and slow spins. The stage was an open field, without spectators. She danced without pain, without fear, without form. The sound came from inside, like deep breathing. He woke up crying, but wanting to live. The radio, on the windowsill, was still playing piano, and for the first time since the accident, she left the window open to let the wind in. The cold air brought the smell of the stage and memories. The world outside seemed, once again, possible. Rafaela arrived early, her hair wet from the rush. He had a pen drive in his hands and determined eyes. Listen to this song, Isa. Tell me what you feel. The sound filled the room, and the heart filled with it. Her friend knew how to speak the language of her silence. It's a new choreography, explained Rafaela. I wanted you with me on this. Isabela laughed with sweet bitterness. Me? Dance? Rafa, I don't have a stage anymore. You are the stage, Isa. The rest is detail. The conversation turned into memories and promises. They told stories of past performances. They remembered the first time they shared a stage. Laughter broke the weight of the air, but the invitation continued to echo within her. That afternoon, Rafaela took her back to the studio. The walls had the same resin smell. The floor reflected an Isabela she still recognized. Let's just listen to the music. Take your time. But the sound was a spell impossible to ignore. She watched Rafaela dance, light, precise, alive. Every movement was memory and wound. The tears came without warning, warm and short. This is over for me, he whispered softly. Rafaela stopped, knelt down and held his hand. You don't have to dance like before. Then how? As it is now. Your way. The way only you can. Isabela looked away, but felt the world spin. An inner whisper replied, perhaps it is possible, in the following days. The idea took root. Isabela dreamed of wheel and arm choreographies. Rafaela sent videos, inspirations, references. Lucas watched from afar, respecting her time. But everyone knew, the stage was calling her again. One night, Isabela went to the mirror. She wore the old leotard, the fabric tight with memories. He fixed his hair and took a deep breath, and for the first time, he moved with intention. It wasn't a rehearsal. It was a rebirth. The chair turned in an imperfect half circle. The arms traced the shape of a wing. Breathing found rhythm and destination. She stopped, laughed, and cried at the same time. Maybe the impossible just needs another name. Rafaela watched her through the studio window. He didn't come in, he didn't interrupt, he just smiled. I knew that at that moment, the ballerina was returning, not like before, but like never before. Isabela, finally, danced what she felt she was. The studio woke up smelling of glue and wood. Rafaela put the headband in her hair and opened the windows. Isabela entered slowly, letting the wheels feel the ground. The echo of ancient footsteps still lived in the walls. The music, in silence, waited to be invited. Rafaela played a piano with few notes. Lucas placed low cones to mark routes. No rush, ISA, just listen and breathe. She nodded, gripping the left hoop tightly. The heart marked the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. At first, straight lines to understand space. Then, wide curves, like drawing clouds on the ground. The arms helped to initiate and contain the spin. The chair responded slowly, timidly, almost fragile. Isabela smiled. Fear didn't know how to turn. He tried the figure 8 lying down, his whole body attentive. Hands, shoulders, torso, gaze, all in dialogue. The right turn came out clean and bright. The one on the left tripped on a speck of dust. Again, he asked, and began again without drama. Sweat appeared as a former companion. Deep breath, arms burning, narrow focus. Lucas corrected his posture with a light touch. High center, free chest, loose wheel. The sentence became a bridge within her. In the third cycle, the almost perfect turn came. The chair spun around on its axis, gently. The room seemed to grow around the movement. Isabela laughed in the midst of her effort. In disbelief, I turned around, he said, like someone discovering the sea. Rafaela clapped discreetly, her eyes wet. Now connect arms and look at the spin. Isabela lifted her chin, drawing an arc in the air. The music turned on, thicker and warmer. The spin gained soul, not just technique. They tried a little ending to the sentence. Turn, pause, advance, embrace of arms, breathing silence, head diagonally. The chair stabilized as if it were landing. All the time fit into that suspension. Isabela brought her hand closer to the cracked mirror. He saw a ballerina he recognized and didn't know. Not the one from before, not any other. Herself, with scars and a newfound beauty. I can dance sitting down, she whispered, certain. In the end, they lay on the floor, eyes on the high ceiling. Rafaela listed ideas with a smile for the future. Lucas noted adjustments, measurements, small risks. Isabela kept the first spin on her skin, and I knew the next step was to invite the world. The invitation to the dance collective arrived discreetly, an open essay, proposal for collaboration. Rafaela was thrilled. Lucas planned the logistics. Isabela took a deep breath before saying yes. Fear smiled in the corner, but did not win. In the shed, looks varied between curious and hard. A dancer whispered, inclusive choreography? Marketing. A producer raised an eyebrow, measuring costs. The director asked to see what she did. The word she came with invisible quotation marks. Isabela asked for music and time, nothing more. It started with the 8 lying down that I knew. Steady arms, calm turn, musical pause. The ground responded with a respectful glow, but the silence of the audience was one of judgment. Beautiful, but limited, someone said in the background. What about speed? What about elevation? Another teased. Isabela swallowed hard, but kept her bearings. Rafaela said, raise the sensitivity bar. Lucas added, speed is not synonymous with intensity. They asked for a riskier section, and she accepted. Double turn, locked, diagonal transition. At one point, the wheel skidded, scraping the floor. The sound cut through the air like early criticism. Isabela held his gaze and finished the sentence. The director approached, hands on his chin. There is poetry, but we need dramaturgy. Rafaela smiled. We have a story to tell. He showed sketches, tracks, scene structure. The man nodded, postponing the verdict. In the hallway, that's not dancing was heard. Isabela felt the sentence hit her sternum. He breathed in 4 beats. As trained, he let the pain pass through without staying, and he continued, because to continue is an artist's verb. Back in the studio, the mother brought caution. Daughter, what if they laugh? What if it hurts more? Isabela held his hands tenderly. It will hurt. But it hurts more not to try. Donna Vera sighed and brought cornmeal cake. At the sponsors' meeting, another barrier. Our audience wants vibrant performances. Rafaela replied, vibrant is seeing courage on stage. Lucas showed data on accessibility and reach. Isabela concluded, I am not a trend, I am a path. At night, alone, she reviewed the bitter criticism. he wrote in a notebook. What is dance for me? Listed, breath, intention, presence, risk, truth. As he closed the page, his chest felt light. The world's resistance has become a rehearsal force. Night fell heavily on the empty studio. Rafaela had already left. Lucas was stuck in traffic. Isabela insisted on training alone, to prove something. The music was faster, the heart too. Each turn felt like an unspoken demand. She wanted perfection, the ancient vice of the soul. I tried to correct the impossible, to achieve the unattainable. The wheel locked slightly, and she lost control. The chair hit the mirror, cracking the reflection. A crack echoed like a frozen scream. The sound of falling glass was the sound of the past breaking apart. 1,000 pieces reflected versions of what she no longer was. The girl in the white leotard, the stage artist, the woman of fear. They were all there, broken and free. Isabela cried until the air hurt in her lungs. Why me? He asked the floor and the mirror. The echo returned only breath and tiredness. He remembered the times he fell in rehearsal and got up. Now, it wasn't the body that needed to get up, it was the soul, and that hurt more than any injury. Lucas entered without making a sound. Surprised by the scene, he knelt beside her, without touching the glass. Don't try to glue together what doesn't need to be put back together. She looked at him, her eyes teary and steady. But if I'm not perfect, what's left of me? He took a deep breath, choosing each word. There is plenty of truth. Isa. And truth is more beautiful than perfection. She swallowed her tears, trying to believe. So this, all this, can still be art? It's the best part of it, he replied simply. In the silence that followed, the distorted reflection seemed to dance. A face cut from 1,000 angles, but alive. Isabela smiled slightly, touching the glass carefully, not to paste, but to accept the new design. The mirror, finally, showed a whole woman. In the following days, training took on a different rhythm, less demands, more listening, less rush, more presence. The chair spun with the lightness of forgiveness, and forgiveness was the most beautiful step she knew how to take. The rain returned, insistent, as on that ancient night. Isabela watched the drops run down the glass. Each one seemed to carry away a weight, but the heart kept something that time did not wash away, the guilt of having replied to the message in the car. One day, the silence weighed so heavily that she wrote, Rafa, it was me. I caused the accident. The message remained on the screen, between tears, but before he could send it, he heard a knock on the door. It was Rafaela, soaked and smiling with longing. I knew you would come before I told you to. The two hugged each other tightly, crying in unison. Rafaela held her friend's face and said, Do not carry what has already been forgiven by fate. Isabela collapsed, feeling the weight finally lift. After hours of talking and tears, the laughter returned. They talked about childhood, falls, lost dances. Rafaela said that she also blamed herself for insisting too much. They realized that the accident didn't separate them, it transformed them, and together they decided to give new meaning to the story. Let's dance to this, Rafaela said, convinced. Like this? Transform pain into movement, Isa. Show the world. The idea seemed impossible and perfect at the same time. Art, once again, became medicine. In the following days, the studio was filled with sketches, papers on the floor, sheet music, tape marks on the floor. Lucas helped to think about transitions and pauses. Rafaela choreographed what she felt, and Isabela created with the body that she learned to be reborn. The name came easily, Lightness. A show about what weighs and what liberates, about falls, forgiveness and starting over. The soundtrack mixed piano and heartbeats, and the final rehearsal ended with everyone in silence. Before leaving, Isabela looked at the cracked mirror. Now hanging on the wall, unpatched, the crack formed a sinuous line like a dance. She smiled. This is where the story began. And she left, certain that the next choreography would be hers. Rafaela spread masking tape, drawing paths on the floor. This is your flight, he said, pointing to the curved lines. Lucas suggested pauses that breathed like the tide. Isabela listened to the track and counted her heart along with it. The studio became a map of what didn't yet exist. They began with an almost motionless prologue. Breathing sound, low light, dense silence. Isabela's arms slowly opened the space. The chair moved forward as if it had been born there. First gesture, to exist, and to be seen existing. Then came spiral wool phrases. Spin on the axis, pause, counterspin with arms. The look led the curve, not brute force. Lightness lived in small decisions. And every decision felt like a life choice. Lucas worked on core and trunk stability, free chest, soft ribs, present shoulders. He corrected with minimal touches, respecting limits. Isabela felt forgotten muscles awaken. A new body learned old accents. Rafaela brought dramaturgy in 3 acts: fall, forgiveness, freedom, in clear scenes. Each act had a distinct musical motif: watery piano, finger percussion, long strings. The trails seemed to speak the language of the skin. They tested a moment of near silence. Just the sound of the wheels scraping the floor. The audience, they imagined, would hear the risk. Isabela smiled, "May the noise be true." And he repeated it until the hissing became poetry. The costumes were made from lightweight fabrics, shades of ivory, gray, a golden thread on the shoulder. The chair has small, discreet ribbons. Nothing hid the metal, everything celebrated it. "Not camouflaging is an act of courage," said Rafa. They thought of light as moving water, diagonal stripes that cut across the floor, a focus that follows the spin, breathing, in the pause, shadow that kisses the skin. Technique served feeling, never the other way around. At the dress rehearsal, the error visited without warning, brief breaking, greater inclination than expected. Isabela improvised arms like wings in guard. Rafaela applauded. The mistake became a scene. And he incorporated the stumble as a living score. At the end of the day, they lay in silence. The ceiling seemed less distant, almost complicit. Isabela felt her body fit into her own story. "It's mine, from beginning to end," he whispered, and the studio responded with an echo of the future. The theater smelled of warm light and anticipation. Technicians ran around with cables and marked lists. Rafaela reviewed markings on the headset. Lucas warmed Isabela's shoulders and wrists. "Breathe. The music will do the rest," he repeated. The public entered like a flooded sea. Whispers, cell phones, eyes hungry for beauty. Dona Vera sat in the front row, hands in prayer, hearts in applause. She smiled, shy, proud, and scared. The curtains opened with a long sigh. The light drew a silver river on the stage. Isabela entered silently, completely, the chair as an extension of the chest. Time, obediently, stood. In the prologue, almost nothing moved, just breathing turning into slow music. An arm rose as if to forgive, the other welcomed what arrived. The audience held their breath, mesmerized. The first spiral of wheels came. Turn, pause, counterturn, leading look. The light followed like a faithful shadow. The sound of the wheels became an instrument, and the poetry happened on the floor. In the second act, the pace increased. The memory of the accident entered into metaphors, short locks, choreographed falls, arm raises. Nothing mimetic, everything felt. The past danced without hurting. At the peak, Isabela faced the wings. He asked his own invisible reflection for courage. He turned twice, landed like a bird. The room almost exploded into silence. Sometimes respect is contained noise. Then, the unexpected. A will hesitated. A second of panic fit into a beat. She let the wings of her arms take over. He drew the air until the chair obeyed, and turned failure into conscious flight. The end came in golden light. Isabela opened her arms to the darkness. He paused exactly where his soul asked him to. The curtains closed at the perfect time. And the entire theater rose before the last chord. In the dressing room, tears and laughter mingled. Rafaela hugged tightly. Lucas smiled silently. Dona Vera entered with oceanic eyes. "You danced what I never knew how to say." Isabela just took a breath, and went to applaud life. The backstage still shook with restrained applause. Isabela breathed as if she had returned from the bottom of the sea. Rafaela spun on an axis of joy and relief. Lucas, discreet, collected small victories in his eyes. The night smelled of light and promise. In the hallway, a technician commented quietly. The wheel got stuck and she turned it into choreography. The sentence ran like wildfire through thin paper, by word of mouth, from cell phone to cell phone. The error was called a miracle. Someone posted the excerpt on stories. 15 seconds of courage turned into eternity. The video captured the moment of hesitation, and the design of the arms saving the flight. The audience reacted with silence and tears. Within minutes, another camera posted from the counter. Wide angle, golden light cutting through the scene. The chair stopped. The arm that continues. The gentle, precise, confident recovery. The theater rising like a rough sea. Isabela looked at it on her cell phone, incredulous and calm. He did not seek perfection. He recognized truth. It was her, whole, in the midst of the unexpected, without hiding the flaw, making it the path. Rafaela smiled. That's your signature. The local press called for immediate testimony. How did you decide to continue? Isabela thought before answering. I just didn't want to lie to the music. And the phrase found a home in many hearts. In the comments, stories emerged in chorus. I got stuck in the interview and kept talking. I stopped running and learned to walk. My body failed, my life did not. Art pulled threads from other scars. In the early hours of the morning, the theater slowly emptied. Isabela was alone for a brief moment. He touched the rim of the chair as if to say thank you. The metal is still hot, recent memory, she whispered. Thank you for holding me. In the cracked dressing room mirror, a new reflection. It was no longer the promise of the old ballerina. It was the presence of the woman who chooses to stay, even when the scene dissolves into thin air. Even when the body says no and the soul says go. In the end, they slept little, dreamed a lot. Rafaela listed invitations that didn't yet exist. Lucas planned adjustments that the body would accept. Dona Vera kept the clippings in a blue envelope, and Isabela slept hugging her own new beginning. The day woke up with screens flashing restlessly. The videos attracted millions of attentive eyes, newspapers, profiles, pages, groups and captions. When failure becomes poetry, said one. Lightness is courage, said another. They called from an inclusive dance festival. They wanted lightness in the main programming. They also asked for a workshop open to the public. Isabela read slowly, savoring each invitation. The future was knocking politely on his door. A TV program asked for a live interview. Rafaela organized questions and breaths. Lucas practiced short pauses between answers. Dona Vera chose a dress that hugged. You will tell your truth, he said firmly. In the interview, the lights were long C's. Isabela spoke about the accident without sensationalism. He spoke of the mirror that broke and set him free. He spoke of the chair as an extension of the chest, and the body that relearned to say I. Messages arrived from unlikely places. A retired ballerina in the Italian countryside, a boy who lost his leg and started surfing again, a teacher who teaches art in sign language. Everyone found a piece of themselves in the spin. Brands offered sponsorship without empty labels. Rafaela negotiated space for social grants. Lucas conditioned support on real accessibility. Isabela demanded autonomy in her upbringing. Art would not trade truth for a showcase. The dance school had lines on the sidewalk. Children, mothers, women of all ages. Some in chairs, others with canes, others tired, all with a story that begged for a stage. Isabela opened the doors saying, "Come in with everything." A journalist asked about limits in art. She smiled, her gaze steady, her body calm. Limit is outline, not wall. The outline gives shape to what we want to say. And within it, life dances what it needs to. That night, they returned to the theater in silence. They sat in the back rows, holding hands. The empty stage felt like a heart in waiting. Isabela closed her eyes and listened to the room breathe. This is where the world learns to listen. Before leaving, they left a key under the aisle. It was the old amulet, now with a new function. Open doors for those who come after. Isabela touched wood and promised to return, with more stories, more bodies, more flights. The sun came through the windows of the new school like a blessing. The walls were light, smelling of paint and ice start. Wheels, crutches and slippers shared the same floor. Isabela observed the marks from the first tests. Their sweat was synonymous with freedom, not sacrifice. On the main wall, the cracked mirror hung proudly. The cracks formed a golden spiral pattern. Below it, a handwritten sentence. Lightness is to continue. Rafaela organized the classes, Lucas arranged support, and the entire studio breathed as if it had a heart of its own. Dona Vera arrived with flowers and teary eyes. When I saw you in that hospital, I thought it was the end. Isabela smiled, hugging her mother slowly. It was just intermission, Mom. The play wasn't over yet. They both laughed, and the laughter echoed more beautifully than applause. Among the new students, a girl watched quietly. He was about 9 years old and had the same curiosity in his eyes. The chair still felt strange under her body. Isabela came closer and asked, "Do you want to try spinning?" The girl nodded shyly and hopefully. The sound of the piano began, light as promise. Isabela held the hoop next to the girl. They pushed slowly, finding the rhythm of the ground. The wheel drew a perfect 8 on the first try. The girl laughed, and Isabela too. "See?" said Isabela, "dance is a language of the body." Even when he speaks softly, the music understands. The child looked into the cracked mirror and smiled. Can I dance here every day? You can, he replied. And you'll teach others too. Outside, a new banner fluttered in the wind, Lightness School, where everybody can dance. The city passed by quickly, but some people stopped. The sound of laughter and wheels echoed across the sidewalk. A new type of movement was taking over the world. At the end of the class, the sun cast round shadows on the floor. Isabela looked up at the ceiling, breathing in gratitude. He thought about all the versions of himself that had danced up until then, the girl, the ballerina, the woman, the teacher, and she smiled, because they were all still dancing. On the way out, Rafaela asked, "Happy?" Isabela replied without hesitation, "No." On the move. The wind blew through the open studio, light and endless, and the world stage turned once more with her.